it's been a couple of weeks since we were at Flashback 2017, but we're finally sitting down and recording our, whatever you want to call it, our recap episode of the event. What was it, 2 weeks ago? Yep, 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago today.
Wow.
I think I was already home at this time.
Yeah, we were, I think. Oh, yeah, you have a further drive. Yeah, wow. And it was a good event. I thought it turned out pretty good overall. It was a Nightmare on Elm Street themed event this year. Last year was kind of focused more with Friday the 13th Final Girls. This year and Scream. This year it was a Nightmare on Elm Street, which we found out pretty quickly. Which, as soon as we walked in, one of the first major issues we had was there was this really, 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 really long line that was like going nowhere fast. And you've never experienced that. I've never experienced that. Like as soon as we walk in, usually into the hotel, it's like you get your tickets and you go. I think we went there early a couple of times and that was it, and you just maybe waited a little bit, but just to get your tickets to walk into the vending room was like no big deal. This time we walk in there and it's like this long line, and thankfully we found out that line wasn't to get into Flashback, but that line was to get an autograph from Robert Englund.
Right.
Or else we would have been there for like 4 or 5 hours, and neither of us wanted to do that.
A couple of years ago, we had got there like really early and then sat around and waited for a while before we got in. And then this year we got there. I think we got there shortly after they were supposed to be opening the doors. And we got in that line and we were both kind of like, oh man. And then we left the convention 4 hours later, something like that. Because we got there like at 10:30 and I think we left around 2:30.
Yeah, 2:30ish. I think you're right. Yeah, there were nothing else after that last Q&A, I think.
And I'm not 100% positive, but almost am positive that some of the guys that were still standing in that line were some of the people that we were standing by when we first got there 4 hours earlier.
Yeah, that's so crazy.
That is ridiculous.
Had we have done that, had we have stood in that line that long just to get an autograph from Robert Englund, we couldn't even get a picture with him, or on our cell phones. That would have been such a waste of time. We would have missed out on all the fun of just being in the vending room, seeing the Q&A, eating lunch, all of that. Gone had we have done that.
Oh man, just horrible.
Yeah, absolutely.
And one of the guys, while we were, because we did stand in line for 15 minutes or something like that. I mean, it wasn't a horrible amount of time, but it's not like we didn't really miss out on anything. But when we were standing there, and I heard one of the guys, well, they better not kick us out today. I'm like, what? So evidently they were like kicking, once they got to be clothing time, they were like, you guys got to hit the road. No more autographs today or whatever. I'm like, oh, man, that would stink. But yeah, it was when we first walked in. I shouldn't say when we first walked in. After Robert Englund came into his signing booth, and we walked over there and you saw him and you're kind of like, we were both kind of like, oh, that's cool. That's Freddie. That would be cool to get his autograph. But then, when you see that, 4 hours later, those same guys are still online, you're like, damn, it's not that cool.
Yeah. And again, this is the cool thing about this whole event. As I've said before when we talked about the previous flashbacks we went to, once you get into the vending room and, you're like literally like, right in front and right in contact. I could reach out and touch Freddie if I wanted to get thrown out. But I mean, like he is right there. Like it's not like if you want to be standing there next to him and see him, and you're like, he's right there. It's like, so maybe I didn't get to get his autograph or say anything to him, but I was standing right in front of him like for a whole bunch of times, and I could kind of look at him and like see how, like, just listen to him talk to people, and that That was really cool. I mean, that just in and of itself is like worth the ticket price, in my opinion.
It was kind of cool that they didn't have them separated off like they've done with others in the past there, and I know that some of the other conventions have done with people like Jamie Lee Curtis and stuff. You know, they're off in their own like area to where unless you have like a special ticket or whatever to see them, you don't even get to see them like that, you know, unless they're doing a Q&A or something, which that was kind of the odd thing with him. At least he wasn't on the schedule at all to do any Q&As. And maybe it was because of they knew that, well, he's going to be signing autographs. But on the flip side of that, though, his photo ops schedule was the most out of any of the people there, because not only was he doing his solo photo ops, he was doing all of the various Nightmare on Elm Street reunion, Nightmare on Elm Street 3 reunion, Nightmare on Elm Street 4 reunion, 5. I think there was a 6 too. I don't remember. But, you know, everybody else is like, has like their solo thing and then maybe one other one. And, you know, he had like, each day he had like whatever, like 4 or 5 or more photo op things. And granted, they were only like 15 minutes long each one, but, you know, and still like lunch and all that stuff. But yeah, it was pretty cool to get to see him.
Probably the coolest Freddy Krueger moment too. And I don't know if you caught this or not, but when we were in Heather Langenkamp's line, or it might have been when you were getting the picture with her or the autograph. So you may not have caught this, I'm not sure. But right around that time when we were standing over there in line to get her autograph, somebody in his line had shown him this big old poster of his film, The Phantom of the Opera, and I guess it was like a French version of the poster. And that movie came out like in the early 90s. I don't remember. I saw it, but I don't remember it. I don't think it was very good. But he was like blown away that this guy had that poster. And he was like, oh my gosh. This is Robert Englund talking. He was like, Jack, oh my gosh, you've got a French version of the Phantom poster? This is amazing. Then he started calling out to somebody else who was standing next to Heather Langenkamp, or the next one over. I don't know who. Maybe it was Lisa Wilcox or somebody. He was saying, "You're never going to believe this. They've got this so-and-so. This guy brought in a poster from the Phantom of the Opera from version of the poster. I can't believe it." He was just so excited about it, and it was just kind of cool to hear that. And he was signing and putting his autograph on this poster. But yeah, that was kind of a cool moment there. Did you catch any of that?
I did not, because if that happened while I was attempting to talk to Heather Langenkamp, that was that moment where I was interrupted by somebody else, you know?
Yeah, that's right.
So this is one of the gripes that I do have with some of these celebrities or so-called celebrities at some of these conventions, because I've seen this happen to other people rather than just myself. You know, part of the experience when you are meeting some of these celebrities is you're paying them for their autograph, but on the same token, you're also paying for that brief interaction that you're having with that person.
Yeah.
You know, I'm paying, and I mean, not that it's a ton of money really, but, you know, I paid the $30 for Heather Langenkamp's autograph, and then the other thing that was new to Flashback this year was everybody, except for Svengoolie, I think, had selfies at their booths were charging for them, except for Robert Englund, because you weren't supposed to be able to get your picture with Robert Englund. And we'll loop around to that again. But so I had paid for this autograph from Heather Langenkamp, plus I sprung for the selfie, which me and you ended up taking together. If you want to look at it, go to our Facebook page. It's our cover photo. And then we'll get to that. We'll get to that photo in a minute. But so I essentially coughed up $40 for this couple of minute interaction with Heather Langenkamp, and some random other person from there comes up to Heather and is like, "Oh my God, it's so good to see you," and like starts hugging her and stuff, and then it's like yakking at her for a couple of minutes, and I'm kind of like, okay, why don't you talk to her at lunch or something? I mean, she's working,
right?
But I mean, it won't compare to last year at all. I mean, the interaction that we had with Amy Steele last year.
Oh my gosh!
I don't know if we'll ever top that. I mean,
I don't think so. Part
of that is maybe a little bit of our own fault. I think if we would spring and go for like the VIP package at some point, you could go to, they have the like mingle, like cocktail hour thing where a lot of the celebrities do go to I think it's like usually like on Friday or Saturday night. I think it's on Saturday night. And I saw some pictures of that posting up this year, and like Robert Englund was there, and like Heather Langenkamp, I think, was there and stuff. And at those, you can't get autographs, but you can snap pictures and stuff with them there. And there you're probably more likely to have like an actual casual conversation rather than trying to think of something witty to say in the 2 minutes that you get at the booth. So I mean, part of that I think is the blame for some of that goes on us. But the other thing too this year that unfortunately we ran into with Heather was, she was the one that we both were kind of excited to see, and she didn't get into her table right away, which is fine. But we got there like at 10:30, and I think we got into the vending area / celebrity area probably at 10:45, 10 to 11, and I think the celebrities are supposed to start showing up around 11. And I don't think she got in there until like probably closer to like 11:45 or something. She had a Q&A thing like at noon, and we weren't the last people that were in her line, but I think we were probably like the second to the last, or maybe like the third to the last people that she signed and snapped a picture for before her Q&A started. Because I mean, when we left her booth, we walked into the Q&A room and sat down, and then they were bringing in the girls from A Nightmare on Elm Street in there for their Q&A. It was kind of funny, the interaction that we did have with her, which was different than what we had with Amy, because we had talked about beforehand getting one of the professional photo op photos with Heather and using it as our cover photo for the page, or for the Facebook page. But then on Facebook and then like on Instagram and some other social media platforms, I started seeing some of these celebrity photo ops popping up from Flashback, and I was like, those aren't really all that great, for especially for like a single picture. I mean, if it was one of the reunion shots, where you have like multiple celebrities in, that's probably the only way you're going to get a picture like that. But for like just her, I mean, I was like, we could probably do that just as well, if not better, at her table and get it. So, but one of the things that was funny with her was she signed our stuff, and then she was like, all right, let's snap this picture. And we were kind of thinking like, okay, so we're going to be done with this like in a minute. It had to have been a good 10-minute ordeal.
It was.
And it was all Heather Langenkamp. She was insistent that we stand at a certain angle under like this one light, and then we were using your phone to start off with. And after every picture, the guy would snap the picture, the next guy in line, he would snap a picture for us, and then Heather, as soon as he would take the picture, she would always be like, okay, let me see that. And so then she would take the phone, and then she would look at it, and she'd be like, oh, it's a little fuzzy, or I don't like the light on my face, or take another one. And so then we would do that, and then she was like, oh, and after every picture, let me see it. Oh, I don't like that one. Let's take another one. And then after like probably like 3 or 4, she was like, let's turn this way, and let's go over here, and then nope, that one's fuzzy. And then I was like, well, do you want to try a different phone? And she was like, yeah, let's try a different phone. And then we took like 3 or 4 on my phone, and it was the same thing like with all of them. I don't think she ever actually gave her final approval on any of them. Except maybe the last one, she was maybe like, that one's okay. And then me and you were like, That one's not very good. And I think we ended up using like the first or second one we took.
Yeah, that was funny. It took a long time, and it's really this is the part of this whole thing that always takes me into the other dimension of feeling like I'm in a surreal existence or something when we go to these things. How many times have we watched A Nightmare on Elm Street as kids, just sitting watching these movies over and over again, seeing her fight Freddy and all of this stuff? How do you explain this type of person in your life? Like it's it's like celebrity, yes, but like had an impact on how you see the world or whatever. I don't even know if that makes sense. But this person was holding my cell phone, so I literally could say like, there's like probably if you took my phone to the police station, you could find her fingerprints all over it. That's so like weird and surreal. It's like hard to even like I'll have these moments where like we'll do these things and then like you stop and you say, Heather Langenkamp was just like holding my phone and like adjusting the picture. And when I was like 12 or whatever, watching these movies, would I have ever imagined that would have happened in real life? You know what I mean? Isn't that, I mean, that's like the thing about these events. It's like that kind of stuff is just so mind-boggling to me. I know it's just a human being. It's not like supernatural or anything, but it's just so wow. That's how like approachable these people are during this event. And it's like,
hey Heather, I heard you're available.
Yeah. And even like even now, like I remember I had my arm like kind of on her waist, and she was a very petite lady, and I can still kind of feel how it like felt. And I'm like, and when you're in the middle of doing it, you're just kind of like thinking like, oh, we got to get this done. We got to do this and get this picture done and everything. But then when you stop and you think who you were just standing with, who was just playing with your phone, who was this person? Oh my gosh, that's like Nancy from A Nightmare on Elm Street. Like I would never in a million years have said like when I was like 12, like or whatever. Yeah, I'm gonna have a cell. Obviously wouldn't have known I would have had a cell phone at that time, but like, yeah, like she's gonna be like taking pictures with Shannon and I. She's gonna be playing with my cell phone. That's just so weird. Does that ever get to you, like where you just stop and you think, what planet am I on again? Or is this like Earth that we're on? Or how did this happen? Like, how did we end up here? Do you ever have those like moments where it's like very surreal and very dreamlike almost?
Not so much anymore. I do remember the first time that I went to Flashback alone when Danielle Harris walked in. I was kind of like, oh my God, that's Danielle Harris. Because that would have been like 6 years ago now. And at that point in my life, it was a little bit different than it is now because I was like really starting to get into this whole like music thing that I was into, that I still am into. And so at that point, she was like the first like celebrity I really met. And I had that kind of reaction at that point. At the beginning of the weekend, and when I went that time, I had the VIP ticket, and I went like on Friday night, and then I went all day Saturday. I don't think I went back on Sunday. And back then, the Flashback Weekend was a little bit different than it is now because they used to screen like a whole bunch of movies back then, and they would do them at the movie theater that is the Movie Co. movie theater, which is so the Crown Plaza is on one side of this parking ramp, and then if you go on the other side of the parking ramp that's next to the highway, there's the Movie Co. theater, and then there's like a bunch of like shops and stuff, and there's like a bowling alley and stuff. So you would just like have to walk through this parking ramp to get to the movie theater. It wasn't really a big deal, but they don't do that anymore. I remember that first time I met Danielle Harris because I kind of was like, oh my God, you're Danielle Harris. You're like my favorite actress ever. I remember watching you in Halloween 4 when I was like 12 years old. And then the next day, I've told this story, I believe, on here before. they were screening a couple of movies, and one of them was Amongst Friends, which is Danielle Harris's like directorial debut. And she introduced the movie and then came and like sat down where I was sitting and watched the movie sitting there. And then it was like that was cool. But then at the same time, I was like, oh, she's just like a regular person. You know, it was kind of like the thing like that. And then it's actually kind of funny. One of the people that I can now gladly call a friend, his name is Joseph Huber. He's a musician from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He used to be in a band called 357 String Band, and now he's a solo artist. Well, kind of a solo artist. He's got a band, but I mean, if you look up his music, it's just Joseph Huber. But me and him were actually talking a couple of months ago. We were at this music festival in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. He had played in the morning, and then he was like in the crowd, just watching some bands and stuff. I think we were watching the Punch Brothers at this time, or maybe Drive-By Truckers. Anyway, we were hanging out, and this guy like comes up to him, and he's all kind of nervous. He's like, "Oh, hey, I don't mean to interrupt you guys or anything." We're like, "No, we're just hanging out." He's like, "Oh, I loved your music this morning. It was great. My wife doesn't know I'm doing this, but I bought your CD. Can you sign it for her?" And he was just kind of like wigging out or whatever, and I was like, I thought it was cool. And then he like went his own way. And then I was telling Joe, I was like, "Hey, you know what's funny is I like remember being that guy like a couple of years ago." I said, "But now because of people like you, I'm just like, well, he's just a guy, you know, he's just a regular guy." So, but yeah, it's kind of cool that you can. It is really cool that, you know, when you walk in, you're like, "That's Nancy."
Yeah,
that's
it's
cool.
It's so surreal. Like the first person that I saw the first time 3 years ago when we first went to it was, I remember I'm a huge Halloween fan, and I love the first two Halloween movies. And we walk into this hotel, you know, the Crown Plaza, and standing there in the lobby talking to a couple of people is Dick Warlock, Michael Myers' Halloween 2, and it's just like, what? Really? Like, he's Dick Warlock is just like right there. And I remember just being completely starstruck. Like I mean, like it felt like I was like in a whole different world or something. And then the next year when we went, I think it was Amy Steele was the first person I saw. Yeah, we were waiting in line, and she comes walking in with her bag, and I just remember thinking, holy crap, Amy Steele just like walked right past us. And it was just like mind blowing, you know, like you just can't wrap your head around. And then what happened, you'll have to go back and listen to that episode to hear our Amy Steele story. But what took place afterwards was just, you know, beyond amazing with her and what we got to talk to and talk about and all that. But, and then this year, the first star that I saw, and I didn't recognize at first, was Lance Hendrickson. As we were waiting, and accidentally we were stuck in the Freddie line, and we didn't know that we were waiting for Robert Englund. But Lance comes walking down the thing, and I saw him, and that's the thing about these things. You got to like you see these people walk by, and you're like thinking, I wonder if that's like somebody from a movie. Like, who is that? You know. And I didn't recognize him at first because I've never seen him with full gray hair. And, you know, he always dyes it black in the films. And so it caught me off guard a little bit. Somebody in the line said, "Hey, there goes Lance," or something. I knew he was going to be there. And I'm like, and that was the first thing, like, oh my gosh. You know, Ash from Aliens just like walked right past me. And he's just like this regular guy, you know, and it was just like so weird. And I think I'm getting better at it. I think I'm starting to not look so fanboyish. Like before, it was like I was so starstruck. You probably see like my pupils were probably dilated. And I mean, it was like this time around, the third time around, I think I'm finally getting my stride. I'm starting to be able to, like, you were keeping it cool every time I've been with you. You just seem kind of, yeah, that's just a regular person.
Yeah, and see, and I, because of like Danielle Harris and because of the music thing, because some of the musicians that I can honestly say are like my favorite musicians are personal friends of mine, so I have that. And then Danielle Harris is my favorite actress ever, and I met her, 5-6 years ago or whatever, because me and you, I think it was the first year that the two of us went, and she was there, and I was like, oh yeah, that's Danielle Harris. I already paid for my autograph. I don't need to get another one.
Yeah.
So it is pretty cool. The other cool thing with not only Flashback, but with a lot of these conventions is the vendor area. And honestly, I'd have to say, like, especially like this year, but as the years go on, I think that's going to become more of my favorite component to this. I mean, the Q&As are pretty cool, too, if you have somebody there that's doing a Q&A that you want to listen to. I mean, we got to see the girls from the original A Nightmare on Elm Street do a Q&A, which was kind of cool. But the vendor area is pretty cool. And it seems like it's even getting cooler because as these conventions are taking off, one of the things that seems to be happening more and more, and it's not just because of the conventions, it's because of social media and all this other stuff, but you have essentially these like regular Joes who all of a sudden are starting up these like merch companies and coming out with this really cool merchandise, and then you go to places like Flashback Weekend or whatever, Days of the Dead or Horror Hound, whatever fest, and you can buy all that stuff there. You have like terror threads and fright rags and creepy company and cavity colors and all these other
Synapse Films were there too, right?
Yep. And that's a cool thing about Synapse Films is like the guys who like run the company are there. So yeah. I mean, it's pretty cool. Like you can, like, if you want to, you can hang out and talk to those guys for a little bit and shoot the shit with them for a little bit. But it's pretty cool. Like, there's this independent movie that came out last year called The Barn, and I didn't even know that those guys were going to be there. And there was a Barn booth there, and I bought The Barn on VHS, and I didn't see any of the stars from the movie, or I shouldn't say stars. I don't know if I really consider them stars, but people that starred in the movie. I didn't see any of those folks there, but it's pretty cool that you can have that kind of stuff there and interact with folks like that. I think it was Terror Threads that brought Felicia Rose from Sleepaway Camp. They had her at their booth. We didn't talk to her. I was going to, but then I didn't.
Yeah, it was a little bit. The one thing, like with the vending this year, the big thing is, like, for me was like the Blu-rays, the VHS, and the VHS was very sparse. I mean, the last year, and I think even the year before, they had a few titles that I really wanted. Like, I wish I would have picked them all up. I only got They Live last year, but the year before, a couple of years ago, they had Halloween 3, which I didn't grab. I wish I would have grabbed that. And then they had Elm Street 1 and Elm Street 3 on media last year, which I didn't pick up. I only picked up They Live last year. There were, there wasn't anything I really wanted, I mean, there were things if I was made of money, I would have bought, but I think I kind of held back a little bit more this, obviously there's always a Blu-ray I would have liked to grab, and, an action figure. Oh, the one thing that I would have, that really stood out to me that I kind of hemmed and hawed at a little bit was they had an original Remco Creature from the Black Lagoon action figure, which I had as a kid, and I never replaced it. I don't have the original one that I had when I was my version of it or whatever. So they had two of them. They had one that was $10, and I was like, oh crap, cool. But then I found out it was missing a foot, and then the other one was $60, and it came with the card back too. It wasn't sealed on the card, but it was in good condition, and I probably should have grabbed that looking back, but I kind of held back a little bit on that one. And they always have cool T-shirts, and they always have one thing I was very happy about was prior to the event, knowing that we were going to go, visit Heather Langenkamp and possibly Robert Englund at the time. I wanted to get a good Freddie glove to take pictures with. They did have a Freddie glove vendor, a guy who makes them, and he had some pretty good ones in his booth, but they were all like $200, 200 plus, And the one I picked up was just as nice, and I picked mine up for $50 shipped, which I got like a steal on it, I think. And because all those mass produced ones are going for, even some of them are more than $50, and they had like that one costume shop that had a vending area. They had like a couple gloves, like the ones you could get at costume stores, which are nice, but like the glove isn't a real glove. It's kind of like a phony, fake glove. It's not like a real work glove. Like the one I have is an actual real work glove with real knives, and all of it's like movie prop quality. That was kind of cool. That I guess I got a deal on that. But yeah, with the vending this year, it was kind of I really held back. It seems like I usually kind of step out a little, grab a few things, but this time I didn't.
Yeah, I did that for both of us this year, because usually I'm the opposite. I'm the one kind of like,
I know.
no, I'm good. I don't need anything. And then this year, walked in the door, and I think I spent like $50, down the first lane we went. Oh, I gotta have this. Oh, I gotta have this.
Yeah, I there wasn't anything really that I had to have, I don't think. It was like, there's a lot of cool stuff, but I think, had there have been like a really good VHS title, I would have grabbed that. They had a lot of 90s VHS stuff. Nothing like real vintage. So I didn't grab anything there.
Yeah, and the one thing I did do this year that I hadn't done in previous years was they always sell extra T-shirts from Flashback Weekend up by where you buy the tickets to get in, and they usually have. This year they only had double XLs left of last year's shirt and then the 2015 shirt. But I think was it last year or the year before where they had, by the time we got there, they had double XLs left and then extra smalls left or something. But anyway, they were running a deal on them. Or it was I can't remember if it was if it was 2 for $10 or 2 for $15 or whatever it was. And I was like, oh, I'll take one of each, whatever the deal was. And I got them home, and they're double XLs, and they are gigantic. They're so big that actually, I'm wearing one right now, and it's okay to wear around the house. I don't know if I'd actually wear it out in public. It's so big, it's almost like comically, it's so big. Maybe if I after wash it a couple times, maybe it'll shrink down. But
or you could cut out the picture and put it on a jean jacket as a patch.
There you go.
Yeah, the shirt was cool. It was a cool design this year too. The new shirt. Oh yeah. I still don't have any flashback shirts. I need to grab one of these next year, whenever if we go back. This year they had a nice, cool Nightmare on Elm Street 2 Freddy. It's him posing with his arms out with the flames, kind of like that during the pool scene from Elm Street 2. It was a cool shirt. So I kind of wish I would have grabbed it, but
I don't remember how much the new shirts are, if they're 20 or 25.
Yeah, it's somewhere right around there.
And I don't know why they don't sell them online, honestly.
Yeah, you got to be there. You got to be there to get them, unless obviously eBay if somebody's selling theirs, but
yeah, you would almost think something like that. You would think if you would put them online that some people would buy them beforehand. It's one of those things because you can only buy weekend tickets. You can't buy single day tickets online, which I wonder if they'll change that anytime, because I know especially this year, because of Robert Englund, there was a bunch of people that were thinking they weren't going to be able to get a ticket at all for the day. And so cause there was a lot of people that were I can only come on Saturday. Is there any way I can buy a ticket online? And they're like, nope, only at the door. And they're like, well, am I going to be guaranteed to get in? And then, so I would think with that, you would possibly maybe sell more.
Yeah.
Maybe. if you're like, hey, I'm going to buy my tickets and, oh, I get a T-shirt too. Sure.
Right.
Or you do like a bundle, but.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
But, whatever. The one thing I will say, though, that this year that I didn't like, and it's kind of becoming a growing trend because of these larger conventions. I mean, Comic-Con has been going on forever, so you can't really necessarily just blame Comic-Con. But I actually heard people at Flashback Weekend, celebrities, and some of the, like, whatever you call those people, handlers or whatever, and guests as well, kind of talking about some of the pricing and stuff. And a lot of that sounds like it's coming from the success of like these conventions like Walker Stalker, that go all over the place and they're just huge. And then the other thing that is really becoming a trend over the past couple of years, and I know that this was part of some of the, whatever you want to call them, issues or whatever, like with Robert Englund not allowing selfies at his table, even though it wasn't Robert Englund that wasn't allowing the selfies. They do these celebrity photo ops now, and they're trying to drive the celebrities to do the photo ops rather than allowing selfies at their tables. And so one of the things this year, and I don't know if you noticed this or not, I did notice it while we were there, was that pretty much all of the people that were signing autographs had a signing fee, and then the selfie fee was an additional fee. It wasn't everybody, but I did see it on quite a few of them. And like, we paid that for Heather Langenkamp. We paid an extra fee. I heard that was, they were told they had to do that. And then the photo ops thing, I mean, like we were talking about before, the photo ops thing is cool if you can get like a reunion type photo or like a group photo, like, hey, here's whatever, Nightmare on Elm Street Part 5. It's the 5 people that are here from that movie. You're not going to get that at a booth necessarily. But the problem is they're charging so much for these pictures for what you're getting. I mean, people are paying it, so that's just driving it even more. If you're going to these things and you're paying $400 for a picture, knock it off. You're wrecking it for everybody else.
Right. Yeah, it's like the costs are going up, and because like it was only like $20, I think, the first year I was there for the autographs, and they're already up to $30. So I mean, there is, that changed quite a bit.
Yeah, and I know that this is another guy that we talk about quite a bit on this show, local celebrity to the Chicagoland, Midwest area. Well, even, I guess, national a little bit. But Svengoolie, who always appears at Flashback Weekend, he was even doing the celebrity photo op this year, and it turns out they made him. So,
yeah.
With Robert Englund this year, his autograph was pricey. It was $80 for his autograph, but you weren't supposed to be allowed to take a selfie at his table. But I heard from a few people there that were like, well, he's kind of letting it happen if you're quick about it and nobody really sees it, kind of a thing. And then to get his photo, you had to do the photo op thing. Well, that's $105. So, I mean, that's, if you got a photo and the autograph, that's $185 just for that alone. That is crazy.
Yeah, that's absolutely crazy.
But, some of those other ones, like for example, like the Heather Langenkamp photo op is like $45.
Yeah.
But I mean, for a picture, and I did one of those photo op things for my daughter a couple years ago at the Walker Stalker convention, and it's like I was telling you, they're doing these things like in 10, 15 minutes. So for like the Robert Englund one, I'm sure you were like, okay, next, smile,
right.
Next, smile.
Right.
I'm pretty sure you're not getting a chance to.
Nah, you don't get to chit chat. It's in and out.
Yeah, it's a kind of the drag. But unfortunately, it's one of those things. I mean, because I think so many people are doing it, so they're not going to shy away from it anytime soon. I mean, the first year that they have 'em and they, sell 4 pictures, then that'll probably be the last year, but I don't think that's going to happen.
The Q&A we went and saw, it was the Nancy or Heather Langenkamp and the actress who played Tina from the original Nightmare on Elm Street, and then the actress who played the mother of Nancy in the original Nightmare on Elm Street. So it was those 3 women. And I thought that was really cool. I thought it was a very cool question and answers. And I always loved, and they talked a lot about, being that because Wes Craven is deceased, there was a lot of discussion about what was it like to work with him, what was on it, what was he like, and this and all that. So that was always cool to hear. And Wes Craven I've always been kind of fascinated with him and John Carpenter more so, but Wes Craven as well. Just both those guys are writers, and I've always wanted to, sell a screenplay and all that. So I always those 2 guys have big inspiration on me. So I've listened to a ton of interviews from, Wes Craven interviews over the years, and but it was interesting to hear Heather Langenkamp's take on Wes and what the Nightmare on Elm Street movies were about to her. And she had the what I thought was kind of interesting, kind of cool, was I don't think this was particularly about I don't know if this was Wes Craven's mindset or if it was her take on what she thought might be going on in his mind. But apparently, according to her, Wes was going through a divorce at the time, and he had 2 little kids, and so she kind of portrayed. She thought that in his mind, and this was the early mid '80s, Freddy Krueger was kind of this force that was kind of destroying the family at the time, and how it was the '80s were a time where there were a lot more families divorcing, and a lot more latchkey kids. And I thought that was really interesting how she kind of talked about that, and how Freddy was the this danger that the parents were no longer able to protect their kids from. And her, in the movie, Nancy's parents are divorced, and they don't believe her, and she's she has to fend for herself, because otherwise Freddy's going to get her, and they actually kind of more interfere with her ability to fight Freddy than help. And so I always love that kind of psychological where you kind of try to find the meaning behind these stories. Because these, Nightmare on Elm Street's just your typical, this would have been if this was written thousands of years ago, it would have been a fairy tale, and it's so cool to just kind of, that's how simple these stories really are, and they're these modern day fairy tales. So it was kind of cool to hear that, her take on it. And she also said, I thought it was interesting that from her perspective, Elm Street didn't really make a mark until VHS and people start watching it, on repeat viewings. In the theater, it just kind of came and went, which, it's kind of interesting because I'm looking back at that time, and obviously '84, we were pretty young. So, I remember it kind of slowly, you started hearing about it all the time in school about the time that 2 or 3 were out, or probably 3. And it was again, video and cable that people were seeing it on. I mean, obviously kids our age weren't able to go to the theater to see it, so it was starting to pop up all over. And then I didn't realize it sort of. You think Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy, it must have been this huge movie that came out, but it probably wasn't. It probably came out, and,
right?
There were people that liked it, and then it just faded out, and they made some money, so we're going to do the second one, and then that came out, and then people went out to the video store and were renting it, and then it just started to build up and kind of had this slow build. And by the time then 3 came out, and then it really blew up, and then 4 was the original series was the biggest one, and then it became that the cultural phenomenon that it became. But it's it's always interesting to see how that works, And it's you think you're in this movie, and it's pretty unique. It's a pretty unique storyline about this guy who comes in your dreams, and it's the slasher heyday. So do you think this is going to be something special, or is it just some kind of hokey horror movie? And I guess ultimately they really just didn't know. And then, now obviously it's pretty much a classic.
And the other thing too is back then in '84, I mean, you don't have stuff like Facebook or Instagram or all these other websites that are constantly talking about these movies. And we've talked about this before. The It trailer. As soon as the It trailer was available, I think we were like texting each other like, "Oh, did you see it yet?" So whereas, back in 1984, you had to wait till you got lucky and saw it on either got lucky and went to a movie and saw it, or you happened to catch it on TV at one point.
Right. Yeah, everything's at your fingertips now, but back then you had to wait.